All right. Brianna Brown, welcome to Making Business Personal. How the hell are you?
I'm doing great. Can I talk now? Am I allowed to
so
talk?
we so we had a snafu. So this is my second snafu. The first snafu was with cybersecurity girl, Caitlin, uh, and she joined a Zoom meeting for some reason
Oh,
instead of this. And I was about to send her an email like, "Hey, Caitlin, where the hell are you?" But
yeah.
instead, you sent me a text like, "Dude, I'm on." Right?
Where are you? Well, to your defense, I have a podcast as well, so I know the drill. And I'm like, oh, you might be in between, you might be doubling up, you might be doing back to backs. I've done that. I might be changing a
Mhm.
shirt and be like, ooh, different day, not different day.
I literally said, "Hey, give me 2 minutes to change my shirt." But, well, because I was wearing stripes. You can't wear vertical stripes or horizontal stripes. It'll zebra. But,
Oh, no.
no, so here's probably what happened. So it is 12 noon right now on the East Coast. I had this in my calendar for 3 p.m. So chances are
No.
I was on the East Coast when I scheduled this with you, because this is called making business personal, not making business technical. I I don't know why my calendar defaults or how to change. I don't know any of that stuff.
Oh, I have this problem all the time because I'm back and forth between Montreal and Los Angeles. And so I put in the time in, like, I'll put in 12 Jason, podcast, whatever, because I will have done it probably in Montreal or LA. So then I know. So if I switch the time zone, I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. That I knew at that time zone, it needs to be this time. So then I'll
Oh,
adjust
that's
it in
so
my
smart.
calendar. So I always, because I've had that problem so many times because the 3 hour time difference or you know, yeah, I have to literally write in what time it will be at, otherwise I mess it up.
That is so smart. I'm gonna start doing that. I have a crazy travel schedule coming up. Uh, I leave for Chicago in 2 days, and I'm there over the weekend, which is not common for me. I'm not working, but, my company, underwrite we sponsor a charity event that happens in Chicago every year, and
Uh-huh.
so it's on Sunday. So I'm going there on Friday, spending the day with the people from the charity on Saturday, and then on Sunday, I'm hosting the event, and then I'm working with a client Monday and Tuesday. Then I'm home for 4 days, and then I'm gone out of my home for 20 days. It
Oh.
it's nuts. Like, Grace is like a single mom for 20 days. I feel horrible about it. Um, I mean, I'll get sleep, but but, I'm not gonna lose any sleep over, but I'm all over the place. I'm in Germany, Amsterdam, Istanbul, um, Dallas, and New York before I come home.
Well, she needs a mother's helper.
She's got a couple.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
But I love the term mother's helper. My friend
yeah.
is like, "Oh, I'm getting a mother's helper." I'm like, "What's a mother's helper?" It's like basically a nanny that does more than just be a nanny. So when they're taking a nap, they're not just like, "I'm gonna read a book." You're like, "No, you're like making lunches. You're going and walking the dog. You're going and picking up laundry. You're dry cleaning. You're doing all the things. Like you're helping me as a partner. You're
Well,
basically she needs a wife."
it also depends on what decade you're saying mother's helper, because back in the 60s, that was a little yellow pill. So,
Ooh. Oh, right, 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 right,
you
right. Well,
go running for the shelter of a mother's little helper.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even associate that. Well, from what I understand, there's a lot of women that have mother's helpers right now as well
Mm.
to get
Well,
through.
our friend, we were this Saturday, we were at a friend's house, or Sunday, I think it was Sunday, and they just got an au pair, and
Yeah,
the au pair starts in November. And I know what an au pair is,
yeah,
but I never knew the process and what it actually entails. And it's incredible. I
yeah,
mean, it's you pay them a certain fee, and then they have to work for you a certain amount of time. They get credits, then
yeah,
they get a visa and all these things. And if you get a good one, not just someone who wants to come to Southern California from, wherever they live to be on the beach all day,
yeah.
then it's apparently it's a pretty good deal. So,
Yeah. You would just have someone living in your house and then they have their like closed room
yeah, there's that. There's
where you
that.
walk by and it's like you have basically a teenager,
Yeah.
like an older, like a college kid.
Well, their au pair is 24.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing they were saying. They're like, and they're like, it's almost like a dating app, because it's an app and you scroll through the au pairs that you might be interested in. And then if you click on someone that you're interested in, then they find out and they can say yes or no to you. So it's
I
like a dating app. And so they said that they avoided any of the people who were 16, 17, 18.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just, it's not because their kids the same age as ours, 3 and 1.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're not having a 17-year-old,
No. No, no,
you
no.
know,
No, not
hanging
in
with
LA.
us. No.
They'll end up doing God knows what
Yeah. So
on their time off.
So, Brianna, what the heck, man? When's the last time I saw you? Do you know?
No, I don't know. I feel like we've connected virtually through text or
Oh,
email or
yeah. Yeah,
whatever,
there's that.
but it's a blur. Time is a blur, and I don't know, but
Uh,
I'm so grateful.
so I'm trying to think. So I know that I saw you at one of your holiday Toys for Tots things
That was a million years ago.
a million years ago.
That was a
There were
million.
dinosaurs were walking the earth.
It was weird, and they were just flying, and
It
no,
was
it was yeah, that was a long time ago, but, and we had those. We had that was through my nonprofit, the New
yeah.
Hollywood. We used to do a charity event where it was like a bring a toy to come to the charity event, and then everyone that was involved was like, "And now I have children, and now I have no time to
Mhm.
volunteer, and now," and you're like, "Oh," and then even the guests were like, "And now I can maybe go for a little bit because I got a babysitter and I'm gonna do one drink," and you're I was like, "We can't."
But that's the thing. It's like when I got here, when I got to LA, and I got here late, because I was in New York before this. I wasn't married. I didn't have a girlfriend. I was single. So any event I could just go to. But what happens is we all get older.
I
And
know.
I mean,
I've been wiser and
you haven't. I mean, you haven't gotten a day older. Um, it's insane. You look younger now than you did when I met you in 2011.
I
But
love you. You're just gonna be in my back pocket.
I'll tell you this. I remember dropping a book off at your house.
I remember that.
I don't know what the book was,
It
but
was
I
your
dropped
journal
it off.
about speaking.
Oh, it was something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I
And so,
spoke at a class of yours.
yes, 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 yes. So I knew who you were before I ever met you because I had
Mhm.
seen you on television, and I obviously knew who you were. But I don't know. There's so many things I don't know about you. Like I don't know where you're from. Like I don't know where you were born or if you just arrived one day.
I didn't.
Like
I just appeared
you just showed up like Superman from Krypton. I mean, like
in a suit with a cape.
yeah,
No, I'm from Minnesota. I'm from Apple Valley, Minnesota. Kurt is also from Minnesota, Kurt Anderson,
yeah.
and he and I went to college together. So I was there briefly at St. Olaf, which is known for their music program and their medical program. And I decided to be part of the music program, and I would sing in the choir, the a cappella choir, and St. Olaf choir, not the big one because I was a freshman then, and then I came out to LA at 19. I was brought up by
19.
reps. Yeah, 19.
Brought out by reps. So, most of the people who listen to this podcast are not in the entertainment business. So when you say brought out by reps, what does that mean?
I mean, okay. So first of all, I started doing this a really long time ago, and before there were like nationwide castings everywhere, before things shot everywhere to the extent that it does now. And I had representation in Minnesota, and I had an agent in Minnesota, and then I got hip pocketed by an agent in Los Angeles, Iris Burton, who is no longer with us, but she had huge young clientele, whether it was Josh Hartness, Amy Adams, Joaquin Phoenix, like Kirsten Dunst. Like she had huge clientele.
What were you doing in Minnesota that you had an agent? What were you doing?
Um, being brilliant? No, I'm just kidding. No, I, I picked up a yellow pages because that's what you did because there was no internet. And at 14, I decided in my bedroom, looking through the yellow pages, to call all of the Minneapolis agencies. Now, I lived in the suburbs. So for anyone that like lives in the suburbs where you have parents where going to the city is a big deal, even though it's not that far, that was my family. Like, it's like, "Oh, the city," Like, that was and looking back, I'm like, "That's 20 minutes. That's how long it takes to get to Trader Joe's, in LA." So, but for them, it was a big deal. So I ended up calling at 14, calling all the agencies and asking, "How can I become an actor?" And then, I usually got like, what are you talking about? But I ended up just figuring out how to get with the top agency. And then they were very impressed with my tenacity and coming in on my day off and off from school. And yeah, and then I just started auditioning by VHS for like I remember I was up for Acapulco Heat.
Acapulco Heat. Yeah.
Acapulco Heat in like, my first of many like here's my audition in a bikini. Like that's not totally weird as a teenager. And auditioning there and then I started getting traction and I ended up getting a what do you call it? A screen test for a big movie that was opposite Chevy Chase. And I got flown out to Calgary for the screen test and went up against another actress who still works a lot today. She got it. She was Canadian. And I then was brought to Los Angeles by my reps, and I started to audition for pilot season, and I booked a small little role on Freaks and Geeks. I'm the opening line of the cult classic Freaks and Geeks, and that's how I got my SAG card. And then I booked a little like crazy indie movie in Romania, and I went to Romania for this family film where I got sucked into a painting and and then I actually went home because I was like, I don't even know what this is. I'm so scared because, I was adulting and sort of. And then when I did actually move back a few months later after the summer, instead of finishing up college, my parents were like, sink or swim. And then
Hmm. Hmm.
I had to figure out how to doggy paddle.
Well, you said something that I don't think most people know. They don't know what this term means, and I don't. And even today in the entertainment business, it doesn't really exist anymore. You said that a big agent out here hip pocketed you.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people don't know what that means. Back in the day, this happened in New York all the time. But
Yeah.
so essentially, someone believed in you enough
Yeah.
that they said, I don't need you to sign with my agency. I'm not even going to try to put you through the rigmarole that it takes to sign the agency, but I believe in you. So
Yeah.
whenever I see something and I think you're right for, I'm going to stand behind you and I'm going to submit you for it.
Right.
Basically, they're going to keep you in their hip pocket.
Yeah.
And so I mean, back then, you were a kid. You didn't understand how cool that was or how special that was. So if you look back on it now,
Yeah.
what was the woman's name who did that for you?
Iris Burton, but I was managed by Nancy Kramer, who also had, like, huge clientele as well, and she
Yeah.
was known to kinda cherry pick people from Minnesota and bring them to Los Angeles, and they paired up. So Iris would usually, at the time, would kind of shoulder whoever Nancy had, and then,
Okay.
there basically was a trial. It's like, "Let's see how you do,"
Yeah.
and I started to do well. I mean, there was even, the movie Drop Dead Gorgeous that shot in Minneapolis, and I went in and I auditioned for, I don't know, 5 roles. And by the way, the crazy part is you think, "Oh, were you so trained? Did you do children's theater? Were you getting all the leads in the show?" No, none of it. Like I went from middle schooler, couldn't read, sing past the page, didn't make any of the middle school plays to like being encouraged to audition for the freshman, or to encouraged to in my freshman year to audition for the school musical, being chorus and like having to work through major stage fright. And at that age, then be like, let me get an agent. I mean, it's just kind of insane, but I had this knowing that I wanted to do something in that field and I had to pursue it. And then when I was in college and I had that like I'm being asked to go to LA and my parents don't want me to, but I know if I don't do it, I will always regret it. And I had a knowing that if I don't do this, I'll just end up, and not just, but for me, I will end up just meeting someone in college, getting married and having kids, and always look back and regret and wonder. So I knew I had to try. And
Mhm.
so I knew that it was a big deal and I knew that it was special. But I also, like I said, I was auditioning. I remember I had this audition in Minnesota for Drop Dead Gorgeous. And I went in and I just was balls out ballsy, I guess. Like they asked me to do a like one of them was like come in as a pageant girl because the whole movie is about pageant girls. And you're being interviewed. And so I decided I'm going to be the pageant girl who doesn't want to do pageants, but my parents forced me to do pageants because it was a comedy. And all these other girls are coming in actually like, I am trying to save the world and world peace. And I look all pageanty. And I came in with my like homecoming maroon dress, maroon tights, and like and sneakers. and I looked a little disheveled, and I went in and I was just awkward, and they were like, "So what's your favorite tree?" And the girl next to me is like, "I love evergreens because of Christmas," or whatever, and then I was like, "I love sticks. Sticks are so," like, and so I just made up this crazy character, and then they kept having me audition for different roles in the movie because I was just so ridiculous. I went in and, like, as sign language girl, and by the way, I know no sign language, so then I decided to I don't know. I look back and I'm like, "How did how was I so."
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. Going back to you picking up the yellow pages and
Yeah,
calling people, uh, and saying, "How do I do this?" And then also going in without anyone telling you, "Hey, why don't you do a kind of
I had no
a
training.
contradictory thing here? Why don't you be a contrarian and be someone who doesn't want to be in patches?" No one told you to do that.
No.
So the interesting thing is this: if 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 a young actor or somebody who wanted to be an actor were to talk to a casting director or a theatrical agent and say, "Hey, I think I'm just going to call a bunch of people and see if they'll take me on." Here's what they'd say: "Never do that. Don't ever, ever pick up the phone and call someone unsolicited because you'll never work in this town ever." But
Yeah.
you did it.
Well, and I did it in Minnesota.
But
You know,
but it worked.
but I was just I think they were like, I'm like, "Hi, I'm 14. I want to know, how do I get into an agency? How do I be a professional actor?" And they're
Yeah.
like, "You need to submit every 6 months." Blah, blah, blah. I was like, "Okay." And then I would
Yeah.
submit. And then I would submit. I just kind of keep in my calendar when I would need to keep submitting. And then I would get, into one agency, and then I get into another agency. And then, it was very kismet because one of the agents, she saw me for modeling, and then, which is ironic because I wasn't like skinny enough to be a model. I actually wasn't tall enough to be a model. Like I wasn't fully like what it needed to be to do catalog modeling at that, because that's what it was mainly. Um, but she saw my picture and she flipped it over because she wondered, I wonder if this girl can act. And she saw that I went to a school, the high school that I went to had a good theater program. So she's like, "Oh, let me bring her in." So it's through divine
Well, yes, and
animosity.
it's also don't imagine you were the only 14-year-old in the Great Lakes area
No,
who did that. Multiple people called those agencies and said, "Hey, I want to be an actor," and they didn't end up where you ended up.
I know.
It's I I see this a lot. It's,
Mhm.
"Oh, well, I had a great team around me," or, "Oh, well, I was in the right place at the right time," or, "Oh, there were so many things outside of my control or my purview that enabled me to do this." And that's true.
Yeah,
But you know what else is true? You.
yeah, for sure.
You're the individual that enabled that to happen. I mean, there's you and I live in a place where we are frequently in the same room with people who would be considered stars, right? They're superstars. And we're friends with these people. We sometimes dine next to these people. We just happen to be in that world. And you know as well as I do, when you are talking to someone who is, they're a star, quote unquote, there's something different about these people.
Hmm.
There's something different. They shine. They literally shine, and you can't take your eyes off them, and you just want them to like you. It's crazy. That's not happenstance. That's what that person has cultivated and developed, and it's different in everyone. But I mean, I almost left my wife for Brad Pitt. I mean, I was like, I'm like, "Dude, I'm enamored with you." I mean, and he was dirty. I don't think he'd showered in a week, but it's like, I'm enamored with this man. So there's something you have, a tenacity, an intelligence, a talent, all combined that enabled you to do those things. Because let's be honest, how many millions and millions and millions of people every day try to get involved in the entertainment business and doors closed?
Well, and I think the blessing, of my growing up is that I didn't get things right away. Right? Like, it wasn't like everything was handed and easy. So, because of that, I had a fearlessness of just, we'll just keep trying and
Yeah.
figure it out and try and figure it out and try and figure it out. And I think because of that, and I do think because I had opportunity that worked out, when I had a lull early on, I knew, okay, well, I've had it before ish. How do I then get back to that place? Or how do I move it forward? And so even though I'd had no official formal training, I had to pay for my own training in Los Angeles with a bunch of kooky teachers, which is a whole other podcast episode. Um, but I knew I just needed to figure it out. And that helped because I think people that have a life needs to look a certain way and it needs to be linear, they get really, they get, disappointed or like, oh, that was hard or I got rejected. And I think because I felt rejected so often when I was younger, I was like, okay, so what? Get back up, figure it out. And that really helped me have a leg up because instead of me going on IMDb every day being like, "Oh, I didn't get that job. Who did? Maybe I should get a nose job or whatever," like a lot of girls do because they have too much time, is I was, "Oh, I
I've
don't
got too much time. I'm gonna get rhinoplasty. I mean, that's. I mean, honestly, now that my 3 o'clock is free, I I
you might
may just go out
you
and
might
just a little adjustment, some maintenance.
I'm like I
Just
mean,
some maintenance.
but I think that there was I had to, like, figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't have mommy, daddy paying for my rent, so I could just sorta work, and I could sorta do it, right? I was either doing it or I had to go home, and
So
I
let me ask you something. Let me ask you something. So, um, you said that things didn't come easy to you. And when you were young, sometimes things didn't work out. So it's just, well, just figure it out. Where does that come from? Because a lot of people, things don't go right and they don't try to figure it out. It's, oh, this didn't work. So is that in your family? Is that kind of how you were raised? Is that a Midwest work ethic? Where did that tenacity come from?
well, I do think that I mean, my mom was a really hard worker. She, even when she was working in her coding job, she's like, basically did the job for 3, 4 people, even though she didn't ask for more money, which I remember as a kid being like, "Mom, you should ask for more money," which is weird as a child to tell your mother that. Be like, "No, you're worth." But my father basically. But that's a whole other story. But I think, my father had a very strong work ethic. He was definitely like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, Republican, like go figure it out, with love, of course, with love. But I think that that was, I saw him working really, really hard all the time. And I think that because like, I would join a soccer team and I was on the lowest soccer team or I was bullied a lot. Like I then had to figure out how to build the skills to move up. And knowing how to do that in a simple thing like being in soccer and then moving from like the C team to not starting to the A team to starting to being asked to be on the a year above and starting like that like gives you confidence like, oh, okay, then I just need to learn a skill. I just need to
Mhm.
learn a habit. I just need to learn something that I don't know yet. And so that has always carried with me. And then I was severely bullied in middle school to beginning of high school. And I think the blessing of that was it severed me from caring so much about what other people were doing and what they thought of me because I was going to go do my own path. Whereas I think at that age where suddenly you're no longer listening to your parents and your peers become your family, I was like, well, I've been rejected from that. So now I just what do I want to do versus
Mhm.
what are all my friends doing and I'll just go do what they all want to do and even, and just be a sheep. So I think
Okay.
that really helped.
What drew you towards wanting to perform? Like, what was it? Was it movies that you saw? Were you taken to the theater when you were a kid? Did your school have theater that you had to see? Like, what was it that you said, I want to do that?
It's bizarre because it didn't really like hit me like that. I mean, um it wasn't until I don't know, gosh, high school maybe that my aunt took me to a professional play. My family did not expose me to that. Uh um Even though downtown was only 20 minutes away. And I remember it was actually, I auditioned for these middle school plays, which I didn't make any of. And then again, I was so severely bullied to a point of nearly taking my life. And I was actually hospitalized for it. And there's a bunch of things that had happened. But in that moment, I had a real awakening and my life totally changed. And so I remember when we had to go in for a checkup for the hospital, and my mom was in the car and I was in the back seat. And I was only 14 and it was just this really vivid moment. And my mom's driving for us to go to this checkup at the hospital. And she said to me, or I said to her, Mom, I'm going to be an actress because actors can be more powerful than politicians.
What?
Yes, and my mom looked through the rearview mirror, and she's just like, "Okay." First of all, you
What?
understand, I was 14. I knew
Yeah.
absolutely no one who ever made a living as an artist, let alone an actor, and I knew nothing about politics. So, the fact that this even came out of my mouth is bizarre, and my mom just looked at me like, "Okay," and it was one of those memories that are just seared into my memory, and then shortly thereafter, a few months later, I then started cold calling
Mm.
agents. And by the way, I had a student teacher say to me, "Brianna, you should really audition for the school musical." And I was like, "I don't audition because I didn't make the plays in middle school." And she's like, "No, no, you should," because I was advanced in choir. And I was one of the few freshmen who made the musical. And I honestly think part of the reason that I got into the musical is because they knew that I had been suicidal and hospitalized
What
and
was
had
the musical?
a hard time. It was called My Fair Lady.
Oh,
So I was
My
like in the
Fair
back,
Lady.
I was like,
Oh, you say that like it's this small little. You wouldn't have known of it.
"Oh, it
It's
went."
this tiny little thing. It's called Oklahoma. But
No, no,
yeah,
but
My Fair
I
Lady.
was Eliza, I wasn't the lead. I was like, I'm in
Still,
the background,
so
I'm singing a chorus.
so you've mentioned this a few times, and it's
Yeah,
probably a foundational moment in your life. You were bullied relentlessly, apparently.
yeah,
What kind of bullying? Because at the point of contemplating not being
yeah.
anymore, is that's severe. So what was going on?
Well, I mean, it was if I go way back, like, I was bullied in 2nd grade. I was bullied from 2nd grade on by different groups of people. Like, kinda normal. I mean, so many people are bullied, so it's like, "Oh, they weren't nice to me." But, at one point in 2nd grade, it was my parents were considering moving because it was severe with some neighborhood girls. One of them moved and then the dynamic changed. And then it wasn't until middle school, and anyone who's a girl who's gone through middle school knows that, most girls don't fight physically, they fight with words. And it can be a really difficult time. And whether it was something more benign like making fun of my jeans because they weren't designer, and I use air quotes on designer because nothing was actually designer in the suburbs of Minnesota, but like it wasn't Guess jeans. It was like the knockoff version because we couldn't afford Guess or whatever. To like having cystic acne or whatever the things were. Like it just progressed. And then it became about my sexuality, even though there was nothing to talk about, but it was made up. And at that time, unlike now, where it's actually more celebrated to be whatever, it was kind of a death sentence. Like you're not anything but heterosexual. And so rumors were made up about me that were not accurate. I actually had never done anything, but it just escalated and it became a thing. I did find out that one of my boyfriends, and again air quotes for boyfriends, he was one of the people that helped start this rumor after he asked me to go out again and I said no. And by going out, we talked about what trees we liked. Like, it was one of those boyfriend. And and
Is this typical Midwest dating? Like, is that an elm or an oak? Would you say that's a dogwood? I'm not certain.
yeah, I mean, what do you talk about when you literally don't even know you don't know anything? You're just like,
Well,
"Oh,
apparently you talk about how the pen is mightier than the sword and how an artist has a bigger voice than a politician. So maybe
yeah."
you just
Well,
couldn't find a boy who could keep up with your intellectual prowess.
I mean, I think that was some divine intervention of something coming through me because I was shocked by it.
Yeah, you were channeling. You were absolutely channeling. There's
I
no way.
don't know what's
That's
happening.
proof right there of a higher power because that was not
No,
Brianna.
that was
Yeah,
not me. That was
yeah.
not me. And so, and then that whole thing, there were a bunch of girls, a bunch of my friends turned on me. It became just a huge, huge thing. I also was on an antidepressant called Paxil, which they found out years later caused suicidal tendencies in adolescents. So thank you, Paxil. And, I think it was just a combination of this and that and this. And then, not feeling, my house was severely vandalized, right going into middle school.
Really?
Yeah, and so I remember just being like, "I can't do this anymore." And so, to actually become hospitalized, it's a huge it's not easy to be admitted in the hospital. Like, and anyone that has a kid that's struggling with that knows, like, where you're like, "I want them to have help," and it's like they basically have to have a knife like sticking in their ribs, and you're like, "I think they don't want to live." So as the attempts became more severe, then I actually had a therapist that made sure I was put in. I wasn't there that long. I was there for like a week, but it was
Right.
definitely a crazy, like, literally crazy, crazy moment. But in the hospital itself, I remember, uh, wanting it all to end, wanting the pain to go away. And I had no tools, right? Like I wasn't taught meditation. I wasn't taught any of these other tools. You're perseverating on, your problems and woe is me and, not seeing that there's things beyond this moment and all of that. And my parents didn't know how to help. And again, I think there was a chemical element as well. But I remember, wanting to, it was the middle of the night, wanting to die. I was banging my head on the ground, just being like, I just wanted it to end. And I felt a light, like a white light, just go through my entire body. And and then I was completely calm. And then I had a knowing that I was going to be okay and that I had a purpose. Those were the specific things. I'm going to be okay. I have a purpose. And that moment on, I became an overachiever. I mean, it was just like
So
night and day.
sure.
Yeah.
So roughly, like age 8
Mhm.
until about age
Worse.
14, 15,
Yeah.
you you were bullied, and it got progressively worse.
By
Would
different
you
groups
say?
of people, but
Right,
yes.
sure, sure. Yeah.
It wasn't
So
like one person.
during that time,
Mhm.
outside of the therapist that you saw,
Mhm.
did you h what's that?
Who's not great.
Yeah, well, I mean, come on. Come on. So, um, did you have a secure base? Did you have someone, anyone that you could confide in, that you could talk to, that made you feel that maybe there's a chance that you're not alone? Was there anyone for you?
Not really. No. I mean, my mom was a bit of a loner, and so I had some social stuff, like, I didn't have, like, a lot of close friends. Mm. And, when I got out of the hospital, then I became more friends with people that were, like, a grade older than me, that I had been friendly with that weren't, bullying me from my soccer team or whatever, because that happened as well. And then, but I didn't have, like, solid friendships that would have been my go-to person to lean on with all of
Mhm.
that.
Hmm.
And in my family, they tried. It's not like, but my dad was always working. And then my mom I always kind of felt that she was more taking care of my brother than taking care of me. I think she was kind of like, you're fine. Cause I was just I had a lot of energy and I was just a different child than she was. And so I didn't feel like there was a thing, but I do, I do feel like from that moment on, whether I was really conscious of it or not, I do feel like I had faith in my back pocket in a different way that became the cornerstone of like
Hmm.
that I can drop into.
Just out of curiosity, have you ever gone to a high school reunion?
Yeah.
What are those like? Does anybody remember bullying you, or is it all like, "Oh, Brianna's here, Brianna's here"?
I only got to go to one because the another one I had my son, so I couldn't go to that one. I was like, no, I want to go to that one. But I think it was the 10-year anniversary and a reunion, and that was awesome. That was awesome. And then one of the girls who was really mean, like I remember her like kicking me and like pointing fingers at me. And she was like laughing at me when I like fell during soccer practice tryouts and like fractured my radius. Literally came up to me. It's like, and I was like, ah, and like I had to go to the doctor because I broke my arm. But you know, it was it was interesting to see her because definitely karma had hit her.
That's a very political way of saying that.
I'm
Very, very
like,
well said. Very
it
well said.
and it was interesting because I watched her because, life's and karma's karma, and I forgave her. I was like, "Yeah, there you go."
Forgiveness is honestly, I think it is the greatest gift that people just don't give enough. But what they don't understand is the gift isn't to the person you're forgiving. The
No.
gift is to you because
Yeah.
you're letting that crap that you're holding on to go.
And what's interesting is it's not like I was like, I hate her" for a long time. I did see the blessing in all of it kind of rapidly, because I wouldn't have gone on the trajectory I went on,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
but that didn't mean that I didn't have something to prove.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
Listen,
I had
listen,
something to prove.
it might sound petty and trite, but proving people wrong is a great driver.
Oh,
I mean it's a great driver to make someone eat their words, you know?
yeah. Well, and especially in a time when it's like had things happen, and then when I actually moved to LA and I moved, and that was such a lull. And then I hurt my back. I was put on disability. I was told I'd never run again. Like my life just went in a different direction. And it, it was part of why when I'd find out people are graduating from college and they're buying a house or whatever, that I was so driven to like, I'm not just going to go home. Like I have to figure this
Yeah.
out. Whereas my peers might have been partying or doing something stupid. I was like, I gotta make this make sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, everybody chooses what's important to them in that moment.
Yeah,
Sometimes people choose, well, this is going to be important to me 20 years from now. So I'm going to focus on this so that I know in 20 years. Everybody has different priorities, right?
totally.
Now, it's pretty simple to type in www.imdb.com and people could learn everything about your career because it's on there. And if it's on there, it's true, right?
Yeah,
Now, someone could write something, like a little comment. That doesn't mean it's true, but that's what you've done. And so we're
right.
not going to really get into that because anybody can look that up. It's like,
Mm,
memorizing the periodic table. Why? It's on the wall of every chemistry
yeah.
class in the world. What I'm interested in is, and it's my podcast, so we're going to talk about what I'm interested
Well,
in.
I know. Talk about it.
I learned relatively quickly when I met you is that you had these things going on outside of acting. They were ancillary to acting, but you have this thing called the New Hollywood.
Yeah.
You have a manifest your destiny. You
Mhm.
have all of these things that you do.
Yeah.
Before we get into what they are, why do you have those?
I don't know.
There we go. All right, so that answers that. So
Kind of. I mean, sometimes I would ask myself, I'd be like writing this 300 plus page book, like guidebook, my manifesting your mission. And I'm like, I remember being like, why am I doing this? And I was just like, I don't know. I got to keep doing it. No, I mean, I think in my 20s, I had a hard time finding community in Los Angeles. I would meet cool people in, one of the many crazy acting classes I was in. And, but I had so many negative experiences networking with men. This is way pre Me Too.
I can't imagine that in Hollywood. What could you
I know it
possibly
was
be referring to?
nothing.
Yeah.
And I was smart, so I dodged bullets, and I got out of rooms that I needed to get out of. I wasn't going to someone's hotel room and being like, what's gonna happen? you
So
know?
by the way, just so people know who are listening to that, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Like that is a real thing that people with a monicum of power will invite a young woman to their hotel room for a meeting. And
Yeah.
that's a real thing.
Yes.
And it's still going on today. So
Yeah. It's much more monitored now, I think, and sometimes people would, do it during the day, but I never had that. There were rooms that I went into where I was like, this guy's sketch, where's the door? How quickly can I bolt? You know what I mean? And I was like, I gotta get out of here. These movies look ridiculous. Like, what is
mhm.
this sea level maybe porn type movie? I don't know what it is. I gotta get out of here. And so I was like, I became
If there's a question like,
what is
is
this?
this porn? You leave. There's
Wait,
no
yeah,
there's no sticking around longer to
no.
really wonder. If you have that question, get the hell out.
Well, no, it wasn't actually, but it was.
I know,
I
I
just
know.
remember being like, I've never heard of any of these crazy movies, and who am I meeting? Because I met someone who's like, meet my friend, and they
Yeah.
basically want to date me, and and good for them, but that's just not the. And of course, they were like 20 plus years older than me. So I think, I became wiser as to the networking thing. And I ended up creating just a group of women. And eventually they were men. There were men in certain
Yeah, there
points.
were. I remember you had some guys involved in that. George was
Yeah.
involved and
Yeah.
some other people and
Yeah.
Wes.
I had
Yeah.
periods of time where there were men involved as well. But I started with like artist way groups that I helped lead early in my career. And then it evolved into a goal setting group. And then it became the New Hollywood, which is a 501c3 nonprofit and supports storytellers and change makers with goals, grants, and mentorship. And then as we evolved, and then it became confusing as to like where's the money going for this nonprofit? I separated them and put all of the coaching stuff that I have under Manifesting Your Mission, and then all of the nonprofit under the New Hollywood. And the main program that we're focusing on now is the Teenage Accountability Program that supports formerly homeless single moms. So it also uses my guidebook, uses mentorship, grants, accountability, goal setting, and that's kind of the through line of all of it. But if you look at where I started, everything was because I learned how to set goals. I learned how to think long term. I learned how to be like, okay, if I want at this age to have kids at 35, then in this age, I need to work smarter, harder, and more logical at 25 so I can get there and not do what I'm seeing in my peer group.
How
And
did
so
you learn that? How'd you
I,
learn that?
I think, again, being going from like the C team to the A team starting, I'm like, oh, I need to develop certain skills. If I want to do that, then I need to.
Okay.
I
Look,
look
no,
back.
no, I'm not gonna let you go. I'm not gonna let you off the hook. Okay. I'm sorry. Because how many people were on the C team and they didn't develop that? Okay.
I don't know.
Again, this is it. That is an easy way to shrug off either something that is just in your brilliance zone, personal genius, or there was something that you saw that you emulated. Because the majority of people on that C team did not develop that skill.
Yeah,
They didn't. So
yeah.
how did you develop that?
Well, I think it's twofold. One, I had anger issues to work out, so I had a lot of energy and rage to channel. So you take
How
that
did
energy,
you
put it in
how did
positive.
your anger come out before you learned how to channel it?
I would run.
You so distance run?
Yeah, I would be like, I'm going on a run, and
So you like
and
Forrest Gump that stuff?
kind of. But, like, I didn't again, that was my only tool. I didn't have a lot of tools in my toolbox. I'm like, "I'm gonna go on a run, or I'm gonna play soccer, and I'm gonna get it out, or I'm gonna focus," I
Okay.
think it helps that I'm a little OCD so that, when it's put in the right direction, it's helpful.
Yeah.
And then also, I just have always, my brain has always been like, "What's the fastest way to get there?" Right? Like, so if I go back to kindergarten, I have this vivid memory of being in kindergarten, being on the back of the bus or wherever I was in the bus. And we're all getting out. And this is the first time on a bus. And I thought, why is everyone standing in line and then walking out that way? That's not fast enough. I'm just going to walk over the seats. That makes more sense. That's faster. So I remember being like walking over the seats to get. Clearly, my parents never took me anywhere, but like, I was walking over the seat, and a girlfriend, later became a friend. She was like, hey, you, you're not supposed to walk on the seats. You're not supposed to walk on the seats." And when I got to the front, I was like, oh, okay, but it's faster.
Can you think of another example like that when you were young?
Um, no. Well, interestingly enough, I remember my mom because she had said, she wanted me to get tested for like the advanced program, advanced, placement and stuff. She's like, she's very smart. And so I went for the testing, and they had all of these different, things like crossword or try to find, word puzzles or whatever. And I didn't know how to do it the right way. So I was like, well, why don't I just take a circle this letter and then draw a line and circle this letter and draw a line, and there we go. And there's the letter. Like, I would do those sorts of things, and I didn't make advanced placement. So I thought I was actually kind of dumb. Whereas looking back, I was like, no, I just thought outside the box.
So it sounds yeah, so I mean just those two examples then also, you mentioning, well, if by this age I want to do this and by that age I want to do this, you're very outcome oriented. It's if
Yeah.
the outcome is to get out of the bus and I want to get out of the bus before these 25 people who are lollygagging are getting I just said
Yeah.
lollygag by the way, are
Oh, yeah.
getting out of the bus.
Yeah.
I'm just going to climb over the seats. And then looking forward in your life when you were in your 20s saying if I want to have a child by the time I'm 35, I need to do these things. So the outcomes seem to be really important to you.
Well,
So
I knew
when
I wanted that life. I think also I saw, someone close to me who was in their early 40s struggle to have a partner, have a kid, have all the things, and I knew I definitely didn't want that path.
Mhm.
And so I knew I had to be strategic. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was like,
I
"I
do,
don't
yeah,
want that, so I
yeah.
need to figure out how this makes sense." And at that age, around 25, I had friends that were, like, sort of doing it, and I thought, "If I really wanna do this to the level that I want to do it at, and be able to have both a family and a career and still have a career, I need to hit a certain point. I need to be at a certain point in my career where I don't have to choose one or the other, or I don't get either.
Mhm.
And so I just had a knowing, and that's how I would. I mean, and started reading goal setting books, and like obviously through my goal, through all of that, like I became well versed in that as well, and then figuring out what made sense for me, and that's why I wrote my guidebook. But
Mhm.
for goal setting, but I think I just I don't know. I would see what other people would do. I'd be like, I don't want that. I
Yeah,
want
okay.
this. Yeah.
Observation.
Yeah.
So you started the new Hollywood. Did
Uh-huh.
you start that by yourself, or did you have a few other people who you said to yourselves, "Hey, let's start something. We don't know what it'll be yet, but let's just start something."
It was really organic. Because in the beginning of my career, I started facilitating artist way groups with my manager's clients. Um, and then that there was something weird with a boyfriend that was in it. He got all weird because he didn't want to do one of the exercises. And I was like, I don't want to do this. And then a few years later, a girlfriend, you know, I didn't know how to handle resistance and self-sabotage, but then later I decided a girlfriend said, "Will you do this goal book with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then so another friend of ours started to do it, and then I had to go do a movie in Romania, or I got to go do a movie in Romania. And I came back and it was coming to be the beginning of the year and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to invite other people to do it." And so I just did.
Mhm.
And then through that, I realized like this is great, but I didn't love how it was kind of narcissistic. Like it's just all about me and my goals. I was like, well, we should do that, but then something bigger. And then I remember in a meeting, one of the women said, "This is like the new Hollywood." And it just kind of struck me. I was like, yeah, that's a bold name, but that's the name of this.
Let me ask you something. First of all, that's really cool that because that really is an organic development. But
Yeah.
so someone just says, "Hey, why don't we call this is kind of like the new Hollywood," which is what an aha moment. That is a really great name and a great title. To you,
Yeah.
what is the old Hollywood?
I think, no, here's the thing. Everyone wants to be rah, 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 women supporting women, which I love, but I think a lot of it is false. We were doing this before it became in vogue. Everyone was like, "Oh, this is what you do," and I say that I support women, but then I know some of these women and I know what they do behind the scenes, and I'm like, I don't know, girl." You're grabbing somebody else's husband's booty on a red carpet because you're so insecure and you're a A-lister, and that's sad. I'm like, and yet there's photos with you and your gang of girls who are not as successful as you, and you're like,
So, just now, a lot of what you're saying right now applies directly to a lot of the leaders out there, which is, hey, here are the four pillars our company believes in. But then employees see those leaders violating that stuff all
all the
the
time.
time.
Oh,
And what it says is, well, if you're making a $10 million a year bonus and you have a C in your title and you're not doing any of that stuff, why should I do it? Because that's where I want to be. And that's what you were noticing with these women who were pro women, but then they were doing things that were antithetical to that, it
well,
feels false.
back then you didn't need to be pro women, but now everyone's I'm pro women, and you're like, are you though? Because I see, I've worked on sets. I know things about certain actors. Like they can't hire someone prettier than them. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like
And that is in clauses. It really is. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is, or suddenly that person's role is smaller, because they're a producer, and or whatever the things are, and I see that where I've always been a believer. The way to lead is to lead by example. Period. The only way to lead is to lead by example, period. So, like when I read the book Extreme Ownership, which is super rah rah men, military, like extreme ownership of all your results. I was like, yeah, I get it. Like I also have that mentality. Um, Not to like Navy SEALs level, but like I have that mentality of like take extreme ownership of what you're creating in your life. And if something's not working, it simply means there's something I don't know yet. If something's not working in my life, it simply means there's something I don't know yet. And that leaves me open to opportunities. The problem is, most people are unwilling to take total and complete responsibility for the results in their life. And some of it's out of your control, like lives. But what you do have control over. And then the next step is, how do I make a new habit and change and do it consistently and not bail because it's uncomfortable? So most people don't like being uncomfortable. They're weak. And I get it, cuz it's hard. But when you get used to being uncomfortable and you're used to changing habits and you're used to a growth mindset and you habitualize it and you force yourself to do it day in day out in a way that's yummy and not like militant, um then it's not scary to do something new.
So what do you do to keep that? Because you talk about developing new habits. What happens sometimes is you get out of this, you intentionally step out of your comfort zone to try something new. And then you do that thing so many times that it actually becomes comfortable. And then next thing you know, you could fall into another comfort zone that prevents you from growing. So
Yeah.
how do you prevent that from happening? Or how do you notice when that's happening so that you can then take a step?
Well, I practice what I preach. So, like, I have a mastermind goal group that I've had for now literally going on 20 years. Like, it's 20 years that I've been doing this. I check in on what I'm doing. I have quarterly check-ins. I mean, I as my guidebook literally spells it out, like how to do it. And so I now have 3 different masterminds. But, and so I practice what I preach and I look at it. And so I'm always just fine tuning and tweaking. So it doesn't feel like, oh my God, I'm going to go do Mount Everest and I've never hiked. I'm building up so that if that's what
Sure.
I'm doing, that's then the next area. And then you hit a plateau and then you figure out what you want to do next.
Who do you rely on to keep you accountable? And I'll tell you what I mean by that because I work with organizations all over the world. We just had our 3-year anniversary 2 days ago of JWC. Uh, and I've done some things, right?
Yeah.
But then I'll be talking to Grace or I'll say something in the house and she'll say something like it came from my mouth. And she reminds me without reminding me. It's just the way she says it. And I say, oh my God, Jason, like you literally just got off of a coaching call with someone where you're telling them, don't do that. It's not going to be helpful. And then I just went ahead and did it. So Grace keeps me accountable. It's amazing how she does it. I mean, she's my growth. Like she's my miracle grow, right? Without her, I grow. But with her, I mean, I'm growing.
Yeah.
So, uh, who keeps you accountable?
I mean, I would say that my husband helps because he is type A plus. And just like in his drive and his and how he runs at things, but we go about it differently, and mine is again more of a structure. And so me leading by example, me running these groups helps me hold myself accountable. And sometimes if I'm working on something that I don't know how to do yet, I will might hire a coach to be like, teach me how to put my podcast together, or teach me how to, I'm going running at public speaking more. Like, how do I make more sense? Or, the same way that I taught myself how to act.
Mhm,
So if there's
mhm.
something I'm like, "Oh, I'm not, booking comedy right now like I used to," I'd be like, "Let me take a comedy class." Or, so I am not afraid to invest in myself and in my business consistently. I always have. I would say the majority of the money that I make, I then reinvest in my business. And that is what always kept me ahead. And the majority of the time that I have. Now, obviously my time is more spread thin because I'm an active mom in it, you know,
Yeah.
when I'm not on set or if I'm not doing something where I need to be gone. Um so I figure out how to make that make sense. But I would say running my groups, being in
So
it.
let me ask you this. I remember when you started dating your husband.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and then I remember when you got engaged and hearts around Hollywood broke, um, because you were officially off the market. Like any of them had a chance anyway, but it's like when someone super famous gets married, they're like, "Oh, I can't believe like you had a chance, right?" Uh, so those are two big, big life-changing moments: getting married
Uh,
and then having a child.
yeah.
What are the shifts that happen to you? You're someone who you've got it together, and when you don't have it together, you actively find ways to get it together or decide, "I don't need this together. I'm not gonna waste my time doing it." But now you have a partner,
Yeah.
and that's a whole thing, learning how to live with someone else as you both grow, and he's not the man you married and you're not the woman he married because you're both different people now, and
Yeah.
now you're a mom and you're programming a human.
Yes.
So, how has your perspective changed? How's it made you better at what you do? And I never ask two-part questions. I'm literally about to ask my first ever two-part question because I hate two-part questions. But you know what? Never say never. So the first part is, how's it made you better at what you do? But the second part is, what have you realized that you no longer espouse, you no longer believe? Because it's like, you know what? I have different perspective now, and I was wrong about that.
Oh my god. Well, I don't think we have enough time to dive totally into these, but, because it's so much. But when I decided I wanted to focus on having a family, when I wanted to make that a priority, when I had that, like, realization, like, this is what I want, because if you don't really prioritize it in our business, you can just kind of it can just not happen, and I saw that. So when I actively, consciously was like, "I'm dating now for my partner," and I'd always been in, like, long-term relationships, but when I was like, I'm actively looking for my partner who I'm gonna have a child with. Um, I knew that I couldn't run at all things in the same way at the same time. And I think that there's this idea like girl boss, you can do it all the time. And suddenly you have, I don't know, 48 hours in a day when you don't. Or you can, teleport being on one part of the world and the other and like make things continue to move forward energetically. And it's really hard, especially an actor, and you're like, I don't have control over my schedule, I don't have control over when I can leave, I don't have control over whatever the things are, missing everybody's everything, and then trying to prioritize building a relationship. And so when I was like, I really want that, I would prioritize jetting on last minute flights and building the relationship and being together and things like that. I didn't take that for granted as if it was just going to automatically easily happen, because I knew from experience that that's not always the case. And obviously you have to have somebody else willing to jump over fences as well. So I you know when I decided like I want to have a kid, I took a slight step back energetically, because I knew what needed to be my priority and that not all things could be my priority at the same time. And that was a big shift, because as an actor you think my identity is what I do, and I think that's why some people go a little cuckoo when and they start to like mutilate themselves, because they're like, I'm not working, I'm gonna, I don't know, grow a third arm. But maybe I'll get jobs that way, or whatever the thing is, to like try to be enough to be relevant again or whatever, when often it's energetic versus exterior. Sometimes exterior works, but I just knew I needed to kind of readjust my time. And I'm so grateful that I did, because I have so many friends that did not, and they don't have any of the things they wanted ultimately, to the level of what they wanted. So yeah, so that was a big growth. And I think, with us being together, he was older. So he was set in his ways with certain things. And I was kind of set in my ways. And so we had that like gem tumbler analogy of like being two raw gems in a gem tumbler, and you're bouncing against each other, and you're helping smooth out each other's edges. And like, what does marriage mean to you? What does marriage mean to me? Like, if you look at, especially in Hollywood, marriage can mean literally anything, like, so, anything goes and everything can go or not. And so being on the same page as to what that means, figuring all of that out together. And then also, same with kids. I mean, I know people who their kids might as well be pets, because they never really see them, and they're just given to the other person to just take care of, and I see that a lot in our industry, where it's like, are you a mom? Or you just like birthed them or had a surrogate birth them, And I think you have to make choices. What do you want that to look like? And we had to figure out, how does that work and what do we want? And like, and there's a lot of growth in that, because there's not a set playbook, especially in our industry.
You know, it sounds so common sense and easy, the way you say it. It's, hey, I had this life and it was working out and this is what I wanted. So this is what I did. But then I decided that I wanted something else. And I realized that, well, what got me here won't get me there. So I have to make some changes. But then another person, their identity, their wants and needs came into it as well. So I couldn't just say, I want to do what I want to do and he wants to do what he wants to do. And we can just make it all work out. We've actually have to talk and discuss what it means. You make that sound so easy.
Well, here's the thing. I think that there's an idea that you can be narcissistic and be in a couple, and it just doesn't work. So if you want to be a teammate to anyone,
Hmm.
whether you're co-CEO of a business or you're co-running anything, there's always going to be someone. I've said this with my husband at times. I'm like, we can't both be the lead pilot. Somebody
No.
has to be the co-pilot.
Hmm.
Like, so the things that you're great at, like in the book Good to Great, like, hey, you're great at that, I'm going to take the back seat while you run at that, and then what I'm great at, I can push forward. And then
Yeah.
looking at those skills and what you love and what and what's the ultimate vision, right? And if you're not fine tuning it along the way, then you're blindsided by what actually is obvious.
Yeah. Well, the idea that it'll just work out
No.
rarely works out. And
Who runs
so,
a business? And because I know we don't have a ton more time, but who runs a business with no business plan?
yeah. Well,
Who
a lot of people,
long term
Brianna,
long
a
term?
lot, a lot of people, a lot of businesses.
I
And
know,
that's the problem.
but you're not checking in,
Yeah.
right? Like, not checking in, like, "Hey, is this still working for you? Hey, what do you wanna do now?" Like, and again, that's part of my goal setting. I check in with myself quarterly, and I really check in with myself annually. Like, "All
Yeah.
right, what do I want now? Where do I wanna put my time and my energy?" Because, my most valuable commodity is my time and my energy. That's it, and I can't do all things all at once. I
See,
can't.
and that right there is the key. And there's this sentiment that a lot of parents tell their kids, and I think it's a beautiful idea,
Yeah.
but it doesn't always help, which is you could be anything you want to be. Well, no, you can't. You cannot be anything you want to be.
No, and there's sacrifices to do all those things, and
Absolutely.
are you willing to make that sacrifice?
Hmm.
And it's okay to say no, or
Yeah.
not anymore,
Yeah.
or never,
Yeah.
right? It's like you can say, "I wanna be fit," but do you wanna be competition fit? Because you can't maintain that.
Yeah. So I've been playing golf since I was
Just so you know,
18.
I have to leave in a little bit.
Oh, you gotta go in a second? Okay. Well, I'll just finish this real quick and then we'll stop. But I've been playing golf since I was 18 and I'd never taken a lesson until 2 years ago. And so I just been playing, right? My
Yeah.
wife buys me lessons. And I asked the guy, just out of curiosity, he was a really good golfer. I said, if I wanted to be like a scratch golfer, or even like a 2 or 3 handicap, what would I have to do? He said, you'd have to play golf for 7 hours a day every single day.
Yeah.
And it's things like that when it makes you realize, no, you can't have it all.
Mm-mm.
It's not I want this and this and this. It's I want this or that.
Right.
Especially at our age. I mean, you're 22, but I mean, at my age, you really got to make those choices. Brianna, listen, Brianna, it was great having you here.
I want
Go
to
ahead.
say one thing. I want to say this thing. A friend of mine's mom said this to me, or said this to her, and then she said it to me, and we were in high school. And I remember being like, mm-mm. But she was right. You can't have it all, or you can have it all, just not at the same time. And I,
Did she
and
say that? Did she say that to you in a candy store?
maybe, no, I just remember my friend telling me that.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, yes, you can. You can have everything because I don't know, we bend time. No, we can't. And also, like, there are certain years where you're like, I want to prioritize more being a parent, if that's what you want. Uh, you know, and that's a lot of time. And
I'm
so priority it getting specific and tweaking that is important. So we're not like looking back saying, "Oh, I regret that I didn't do the thing."
Yeah. And that's the big regret. Listen, I'm going to put all of your links in our description and stuff. But
Okay.
if somebody wanted to find you and learn more about you, where would they go?
So many places. I'm in all the places. If you're a business person, LinkedIn, right? Brianna at Brianna Brown Keene.
Mhm.
I also have the New Hollywood on there as well. If you're a Instagram person or a TikTok person, it's Brianna Brown Keene. If it's X, it's Brown Brianna. Don't ask. I also have the New Hollywood
Mhm.
official is on Instagram. My website is Brianna brownkeen.com. If you want to know more about like my manifesting your mission and all of that stuff, where I do speaking engagements and things like that, my guidebook, it's manifestingyourmission.org. And yeah, and then the newhollywood.org.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. We've been trying to get this together for a couple months now, and we finally did. So thank you. It's
I feel like
great to see you.
it's great to see you. I feel like we need to take a take two and take three. I feel like we could talk for hours.
Well, that's the thing. And every one of my guests says that because it's true. There's so much to talk about. And trust me, we could do a take two.
Done.
Absolutely. You know, and I'll throw you some hardballs. But
Ooh, I love it.
thanks for coming on the show. And we got to find a time in town. Our kids need to meet. We got to make
Done.
that happen.
Done.
All right.
All right.
Make it a
Thank
great
you.
day.